A slight distortion in perception always appears before a person has the chance to give it any name. No warning sound, no special flash of light. Just a moment when you feel everything is half a beat off from normal. No one teaches you to notice it, yet something within you knows clearly that something has just shifted in the way you see the world. Familiar thoughts no longer align perfectly with your experience. Emotions that once carried clear labels suddenly become harder to read. Everything still functions, but a different frequency slips into each layer of sensation in a way you cannot ignore. Others would call it stress or fatigue, but you understand it more deeply. This feeling does not come from outside. It comes from a subtle point of misalignment in the way your consciousness reflects reality, as if some foundational line of code has changed while the rest of you has not yet adjusted to it. This point of distortion is often very small. You look at someone you know and realize you no longer feel them the way you used to. You hear a story, and though the sound is unchanged, the meaning shifts in a strange way. You walk into a room once familiar and feel the space sitting a few millimeters away from where it used to be. Not large enough to scare you, but sharp enough to make it impossible to ignore. It is the first sign of a slight crack in the old perceptual frame. People often think they are experiencing changes in emotion, but what is actually shifting is the foundation those emotions rest on. This distortion does not arrive as an event, it arrives as an undeniable truth. When you start asking questions you never bothered with before, when a piece of your life no longer feels like it fits, when things you once believed firmly suddenly loosen their grip, that is when your perception has taken its first step outside the old program. Reality has not changed, but your vantage point has shifted just slightly, and that small shift is what begins to shake the structure you once believed was solid. This perceptual shift always comes in a unique way. Sometimes it is the moment you sit alone and feel everything around you standing still while something inside you begins to move. Sometimes it is a fleeting glance in the mirror where you no longer feel like the person you used to know. Sometimes it is the inexplicable sense that you no longer belong to the environment where you have lived for years. Nothing specific happens, yet everything feels both right and wrong at the same time. This is not confusion. It is the first signal that the old perceptual system is losing its sense of absoluteness. People tend to explain these changes with logic. Everyone wants to believe that rest, joy, or new habits will bring things back to normal. But a perceptual shift is never an invitation to return to normal. It is the reminder that you have crossed a boundary most people never notice. Every small misalignment is a deeper symptom that your consciousness is beginning to see what the old program was never designed to understand. This is the stage where you feel you no longer fit neatly into any frame, not fully your old self, yet not formed enough to be the new one. No longer fully believing in the old system of meaning, yet not having the words to describe what you now feel. You are standing between two layers of perception, with no map, no definition, only the undeniable sense that something wants to be seen more clearly. This shift does not break you, it opens you. It does not take away your stability, it only removes the illusion that stability is something fixed. When familiar concepts begin to shake, it is not because they are wrong, but because you have reached the limit of what they can hold. Your consciousness is larger than those frames, and the first distortion is the signal that you can no longer live through the old version of yourself. You do not need to understand everything right away. You only need to recognize one thing. This sense of distortion is not a sign of imbalance. It is proof that your perception has risen beyond the familiar line and begun to see reality from an angle most people never experience. That small point of distortion is the first doorway opening to the journey you are about to enter. This is not disorder, This is adjustment. This is the beginning. The invisible fracture in identity never appears with a loud sound. It does not resemble those moments of collapse you can point to with dates or events. It is like a crack beneath the surface, silent, subtle, yet strong enough for you to feel that something deep within you is shifting. No one sees it, no one hears it, but because the most familiar parts of your life suddenly feel distant. The roles you once inhabited smoothly now feel tight, and the automatic thoughts that once ran effortlessly now fall out of rhythm. You no longer merge with them the way you once did. Instead, you stand apart, observing them from a distance you never knew you could stand at. This fracture does not destroy you, it exposes you. It reveals parts of yourself that used to be hidden by habit, by roles, by expectations. You begin to realize that a certain layer of identity has been operating in you for many years, yet now it no longer fits the perspective you are touching. The things you once clung to, once treated as foundations, now tremble as if they were built on soft ground. You do not know what new thing is forming, but you are certain that the old one can no longer hold you. Perhaps you have felt this before. A moment when you look at yourself and see a version you no longer trust as completely as before. A moment when you hear your inner voice and realize it no longer represents what you truly want. A moment when you sit among familiar people and feel like a stranger passing through their lives, not because they have changed, but because the identity that once defined you is beginning to crack from the inside. Have you ever gone through such a moment, even when no one understands, yet you know that you are the one changing at the root? If you have felt a slight fracture within yourself, I want you to pause for a few seconds and answer honestly, are you ready to go deeper into this process? If you are ready, show your presence by leaving a comment, even just one word, I am ready, or simply the number 1. This is not only a confirmation for yourself, it is also how I know you are here with me, that what I am saying is reaching you, and that is truly precious for someone creating content like me. Thank you for being here. When the fracture in identity begins to widen, you will notice reality responding in a strange way. Things that once brought you comfort suddenly feel heavy. Familiar conversations suddenly feel hollow, as if the meaning has been drained from every word. You begin to feel a strange kind of silence within, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of truth preparing to reveal itself. In that silence, you see more clearly the things you have accepted for too long, the limits you have lived with for many years, the beliefs that no longer reflect what you are becoming. This invisible fracture makes you see what you have avoided seeing. It makes you feel truths you once resisted. It forces you to face a question you have postponed for too long, a question that tightens something inside you every time you think about it. That question is not, what should I do next? That question is, who am I truly when I am no longer playing any role? This is the stage very few people have the courage to move through. Most are pulled back to their old version by the false safety it offers, by relationships that require them to keep playing the same role, by habits that pull them back into old patterns of reaction. But you right here are sitting in the middle of that fracture, realizing that your identity no longer fits inside what you once believed about yourself. No identity lasts forever. Every identity only fits a certain stage of perception. When perception becomes larger than identity, identity must crack open to match the new frequency. The pain does not lie in the breaking of the old identity. The pain lies in the fact that you keep holding on to it because it once felt like home. But clearly that this home is no longer spacious enough for who you are becoming. You are standing at the boundary where you understand that a part of you must dissolve so a new part can form. You feel lonely not because no one understands you, but because the old identity can no longer walk with you. You feel lost not because you do not know where to go, but because the old compass no longer points in the right direction for your new self. You feel as if everything is standing at a threshold with nothing certain, yet it is at this threshold that the old identity is peeling away from you. This invisible fracture is the first gift of transformation. It shows you that you have reached the limit of your old version. It tells you that you are ready to step into a wider, deeper, truer space. And if you've come this far, if you feel each word reflecting something within you, leave a sign to show that you have chosen to continue. A simple word, I am ready, or just the number 1. You cannot imagine how meaningful that is to me, knowing that I am not speaking into emptiness, but reaching someone who is truly transforming. Thank you for being here. Let us continue forward together. The intervention of the field begins the moment the fracture in identity opens a gap wide enough for the light of awareness to enter. There are no loud signs or clear warnings. Only small details in the flow of life begin to shift away from old patterns, and you recognize that the shift is not random. The field does not intervene with miracles or extraordinary events. The field intervenes with precision. When a part of you shifts its frequency, the field adjusts the environment around you to reflect that shift accurately. What you once dismissed as coincidence begins to happen with a frequency too persistent to ignore. Thoughts that barely pass through your mind are echoed back through an old encounter, an unexpected message, an event arriving at the exact moment reason cannot explain. Not because the field wants to impress you, but because the field responds instantly when awareness changes. Everything operates through frequency compatibility. When you shift your level of perception, reality shifts the way it interacts with you. That is the rule. In this phase, you begin to sense an invisible layer of information sliding beneath every event. Every encounter, every sentence, every small detail feels like a piece placed precisely where it needs to be so that you notice it. A friend you rarely speak to suddenly appears on the day you are contemplating something important. A sentence you overhear by chance describes exactly the internal state you have not yet found words for. A book falls from a shelf at the moment you are confused about your direction. These things are not designed to convince you, they are designed to synchronize you. The field does not use language to communicate. The field uses arrangement. It adjusts the flow of events to force you to look at what you have been avoiding. When you need to realize that an old belief has expired, the field places you in a situation where that belief no longer works. When you need to understand that a relationship is no longer aligned, the field makes you see the misalignment you once ignored. When you need to step into a new mode of operation, the field quietly closes the doors you keep trying to cling to, not to punish you, but to keep you from falling back into an old frequency you have already outgrown. One of the clearest signs of this intervention is that things that once operated smoothly suddenly become heavy. It is not that you have lost energy, it is that the old mechanism is no longer compatible with you. Meanwhile, paths you never considered begin to open with an ease you cannot explain. You do not have to push, you only have to step. The field creates momentum behind you when you move in the right direction and resistance when you move against your own frequency. This is why you begin to feel a different current beneath your actions. Not that everything becomes easy, but that what is right for you becomes right in a way that feels light and steady. Time also begins to shift in this phase. You experience moments when time stretches as you stand before something that requires deeper seeing. You experience days that pass unusually fast when you are leaving old structures behind. Time is no longer linear. It becomes a reflection of your awareness. When you expand, time expands. When you contract, time contracts. This is a form of interaction between your energy field and the field, not an illusion as you once thought. Another sign of the intervention is the continuous appearance of repeating patterns. You see the same numbers in many places. You hear the same sentences from multiple people. You encounter repeated situations with small variations, as if someone were adjusting the input data to push you toward a specific realization. The field uses repetition to clarify what you still refuse to acknowledge. When you have not yet recognized a truth, the field keeps presenting it in different forms, gently but precisely, a little at a time, until you can no longer deny it. The intervention also shows through how your environment begins to feel either too tight or too spacious. Places that once made you feel safe suddenly become suffocating. Places that once felt unfamiliar now feel breathable. It is not the environment that changes, it is your compatibility with it. The field adjusts the external space so that you can clearly sense what still belongs to you and what has already slipped out of your frequency line. You will also notice that some people naturally drift out of your life without conflict, not because they are bad or because you are better. It is simply that the energy fields no longer intersect. The field separates frequency lines to keep you from being pulled back into an old code. At the same time, new people appear in gentle ways, not loud, but carrying a level of resonance so strong that you feel as if you have known them before. The field never leaves you empty. It simply replaces connections that are no longer aligned with those that can elevate your frequency to match your emerging identity. The most important thing in this phase is understanding that the field's intervention is not meant to push you toward an entirely different version of yourself. The field does not force you into a new template. The field simply removes what no longer reflects your true essence. Every event occurs not to change you, but to peel away the layers that prevent you from seeing yourself. When you begin to notice that every movement around you carries a hidden precision, it is not imagination. It is the interaction between the deepest layer of you and the quantum structure of reality. This is the phase where you are no longer living inside the life of your old identity, but not yet fully anchored in the expanded version. You are standing between two fields, and it is in this in-between space that the field intervenes the most. Not to lead you somewhere new, but to bring you back to the true frequency of who you really are. The moment of cognitive unmasking always arrives in a way that leaves you unable to hide anything from yourself. This is not the moment of exhaustion or giving up, but the moment when the most sophisticated layers of protection in your mind fall away naturally. No layer remains strong enough to maintain the image you have tried to build for many years. What you once believed was your true essence begins to reveal gaps, openings, pieces that no longer fit. You can clearly feel that the deepest part of you is rising, demanding to be seen, demanding to be accepted, demanding to exist without any covering. This moment is not gentle, but it is not loud either. It is like standing before a mirror you have looked into thousands of times. But this time, the reflection no longer matches the person you once believed yourself to be. You see the contradictions within you, see the things you tried to explain away, to rationalize, to make appear fine, now becoming impossible to pretend about. Honesty with yourself stops being a choice. It becomes the only thing left. You cannot return to the old way of seeing because it can no longer hold you. The beliefs that once kept you upright soften and then collapse piece by piece. Not because they are wrong, but because they have completed their purpose. This is the moment when awareness no longer operates from habit, but from clarity. You can see through the stories you used to tell yourself, the reasons you once used to justify your choices, the promises you reminded yourself of to maintain stability. You see the real motives behind each action, see clearly what you pursued out of fear and what you rejected because you feared loss. When the mask falls, the most vulnerable parts of you stand at the center and demand that you look without turning away. This is not harm, this is truth. In this moment, your old identity tries to cling to what remains. It searches for reasons, for language, for any fragment of logic to preserve its role. You may feel a slight resistance, like a crack, trying to close, trying to heal, trying to return to its former shape. But there is no turning back. Once you have seen something, you cannot unsee it. Once you have recognized a truth, you cannot pretend not to know. Awareness does not shrink once expanded. It only continues to open. This is also the moment you realize you no longer fit into many roles you once wore, like armor. The roles you played to please others, to maintain harmony, to avoid conflict, to preserve a stable image. You see the layers of performance. You did not notice yourself performing. You see the long-lasting fatigue of maintaining versions of yourself that no longer represent who you truly are. And what exhausts you is not that you changed, but that you have outgrown the patterns you once squeezed yourself into. This is also when you see the truth in your relationships. Not the truth about others, but the truth about how you have shrunk yourself, how you projected, how you distorted yourself to fit what others needed. You realize that some connections were not based on truth, but on roles. You see conversations where you only said safe words, moments where you chose silence to avoid judgment, times when you looked away because you feared losing fragile stability. When you see all this, you understand that you can no longer interact the way you once did. Not because you want to change others, but because you have changed the way you see yourself. The unmasking also reveals the desires you buried deeply. Dreams you once called unrealistic now feel close. Aspirations you once dismissed as luxuries now feel necessary. And things you once called goals suddenly feel empty and weightless, like a useless shell. You realize many things you once chased were not yours, but were attached to you by family, society, fear, habit. When you look directly at this, you feel both relief and pain. Relief, because you no longer have to carry what does not belong to you. Pain, because you realize you have lived too long inside a shape that was not true. Unmasking is never the end. It is the real beginning. Because when all the false layers fall away, you finally see the foundation you never built. You finally see where you stand when you are no longer defined by image, belief, role, success, failure. In that nakedness, you do not become weaker, you become brighter, clearer, truer. You no longer need complexity. You no longer need performance. You no longer need to prove anything. Looking directly at yourself is not easy. Not everyone has the courage to face the parts they have hidden for too long. But in that moment, a subtle door opens inside. A door that leads you to a new awareness, where you no longer live through an image of yourself, but through the truth of yourself. No longer using fear to decide, but clarity. No longer using the expectations of others, but the voice within. No longer using the old identity as armor, but using your true essence as a source of light. This moment reveals you to yourself, but it does not leave you empty. It only removes what no longer fits. It only sheds the layers you no longer need. It only illuminates the parts you have forgotten. When the mask falls, the only thing left is the true identity you once thought you had lost. And this becomes the new foundation for you to step into a level of awareness not everyone has the courage to touch. The phase of recoding begins the moment the cognitive mask falls and you stand before the naked truth of yourself. No more coverings, no more roles, no more old frameworks to cling to. From this moment on, every inner structure begins to reorganize itself into a new order. This is not a process of creating a new person, but a process of returning you to your most original form, the form you buried beneath layers of beliefs, fears, and expectations for many years. If this story touches your emotions at any point, if you feel something inside you moving even slightly, give me a like so I know you are still here and walking with me through each unfolding step of this awareness. Recoding does not unfold through brilliant moments. It unfolds through very small but deeply impactful shifts. You begin to clearly sense subtle signals in your thoughts and emotions. What once triggered strong reactions suddenly becomes light, and what once made you avoidant now feels closer. You look at old things and see that they no longer control you the way they used to. No forcing, no trying to change. You simply no longer match the old code. That is the evidence that your inner system is rewriting its source code. In the past, each time you faced fear, the old identity reacted immediately by shrinking, defending, or escaping. But in the recoding phase, you begin to see fear as a directional signal. You no longer see it as a barrier. You see it as a doorway. When awareness reorganizes its structure, emotions reorganize their structure as well. Emotions that once destabilized you now carry information. Emotions that once dragged you down now appear as lines of code being revealed for you to revise. You begin to understand that emotions are not something to avoid, but an internal data system telling you which part of yourself needs reprogramming. During this phase, you notice a kind of inner silence you rarely touched before. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of clarity forming. The mind does not disappear, but it becomes transparent. You hear the space between your thoughts. You feel your own movement without being pulled into it. This is a state of alertness you once felt briefly but could never hold for long. When the source code changes, silence does not need to be found. It arrives naturally because the old structure no longer creates noise. You will also notice that intuition begins to operate more strongly and clearly. No longer vague impressions, but sharp frequencies that let you know what is right for you instantly. Everything aligned feels light and straight. Everything misaligned feels off within seconds. This is not a new ability, but an inherent ability activated once the old filters no longer obscure you. Recoding does not give you something new. It removes what disconnected you from yourself. Your ability to receive information from the field also becomes clearer. Small details suddenly become signs. Ordinary conversations suddenly carry messages. Minor events suddenly carry guidance. Not because the field speaks louder, but because you are now able to hear it without interference from old identity layers. In the past, you often missed these subtle signals, but now they become clear, like notes ringing in the quiet of space. Your awareness becomes sensitive. Not sensitive in a fragile way, but sensitive in a way that perceives truth without effort. One important aspect of this phase is that you realize things you once thought were random actually have structure. You begin to see patterns across your life. You see how your choices, emotions, and actions connect like a complex system. You see the logic beneath what happens to you. What once confused you now becomes easy to understand because you are seeing from a higher layer of awareness. This is the process of data recoding. When you no longer look through a mask, you see the entire operating network of reality. Your relationship with your environment also shifts strongly. You become highly sensitive to spaces. You feel which places match your frequency and which places make you contract. You feel which people expand you and which people make you shrink. This is not judgment or discrimination. This is the new operating system reading information more accurately. When the old source code stops running, you become more honest with your own sensations. Not honest in a confrontational way, but honest in a way that no longer harms yourself by forcing yourself into environments that no longer fit. Similarly, you become clearer about your true values. Things you once chased no longer attract you. Goals once labeled as success now feel empty. You no longer want to do things just to be validated. You want to do what feels aligned with your essence. This is the most important point of recoding. Your value system is rewritten from the root, and every choice begins to come from the inner self rather than from fear. This phase also marks a shift in how you connect with others. Old relationships no longer reflect you the way they once did, so they either drift away or settle into neutrality. You do not cling, you do not push away. You simply hold your true frequency and let the field decide who continues with you. At the same time, you begin to attract completely new connections. People with whom you do not have to perform, do not have to explain, do not have to shrink. They recognize you instantly, and you recognize them as if the two energy fields have known each other before. This is the clearest sign that recoding is active. When the source code is rewritten, you do not become a better version, you become a truer version. No urgency, no rushing, no battling fear. You operate lightly, steadily, cleanly. You do not need to think much. You simply respond from clarity. This is not perfection, this is wholeness. A state where everything is in its proper place, not because you control it, but because you no longer create conflict between your inner self and the self you show outwardly. Recoding is the phase in which you gradually realize that you were never inadequate. You were simply covered by distorted layers of code that made you forget your true nature. When those layers fall away, you do not have to try to become someone else. You only need to stand firmly in the deepest part of yourself, the part that has always been present even when you forgot it. And that part is the foundation for everything that is about to unfold ahead of you. The consequence of a new frequency does not arrive as reward or punishment. It comes as the natural result of stepping out of an old field of resonance and standing on an entirely different frequency band. When awareness expands, everything that once matched the old frequency can no longer remain in its former form. Not because you want change, but because you can no longer exist in the old space with your new structure. This is the stage where every interaction, every relationship, every choice, and your entire way of functioning begins to reflect the new frequency so clearly that you cannot ignore it. The first shift you feel usually comes from within. Things that once excited you suddenly feel dull. Goals you once considered important suddenly feel hollow. Habits that used to help you run smoothly now feel heavy, as if covered in dust. You no longer find life in what once felt familiar. Not because those things are wrong, but because you have outgrown the space where they were created. When the frequency changes, the sense of resonance changes. Things that once held meaning no longer keep the right rhythm. You cannot force yourself to like what has expired. That expiration is not failure. It is proof that you have grown larger than your old shape. The next thing you notice is that you become sensitive to frequency mismatches around you. A place you once felt neutral suddenly feels suffocating. An ordinary conversation drains your energy even when no conflict exists. A relationship that once felt stable suddenly feels loose. This is not you becoming demanding or difficult. This is your body reading subtle information more accurately after your energy system has recoded. You can feel the vibration of each space, each person, each thought. You sense where you expand and where you contract. The new frequency gives you the ability to read reality with a level of honesty you never had before. One of the clearest consequences of the new frequency is the falling away of connections that no longer align. Not everyone leaves through drama. Many leave through silence, through distance, through a lack of resonance, without any specific reason. Any relationship built on the old identity naturally fractures when that identity dissolves, not because the other person is bad, not because you are above them, simply because the two energy fields no longer intersect. You cannot hold on to connections that have fallen out of your frequency. If you try, You will feel exhausted from forcing yourself to maintain a rhythm that no longer fits. At the same time, new connections appear with surprising softness. You meet people who understand you without needing long explanations, people who recognize you through the first shift of your energy. You feel seen without effort, safe without words. The new frequency attracts those who already vibrate similarly or are moving toward that direction. This is the natural arrangement of the field, so you do not walk alone. These people do not come to fill emptiness, they come to resonate. Another consequence is the strong shift in how reality responds to you. When your frequency becomes higher and more stable, the delay between thought and event begins to shorten. You think of something and a sign appears that same day. You wonder about a question and circumstances bring you the answer without you seeking it. You make a small decision and the flow of events shifts clearly in response. This is not magic. It is the natural reaction of the field to an energy system that is balanced and sending clear signals. When your signal is blurry, reality responds slowly. When your signal is sharp, reality responds immediately. This is law, but not all responses are pleasant. When you hold a high frequency, anything you do against that frequency creates discomfort instantly. Misalignment you once tolerated becomes impossible to ignore. You feel uneasy when you say something untrue to yourself, heavy when you choose something that does not fit. You lose energy the moment you compromise on anything against your nature. The new frequency does not allow you to live the old life. Misalignment becomes so clear you cannot pretend anymore. Your body also reacts strongly to the new frequency. You may feel unusual shifts like energy moving up your spine, warmth or cold in specific areas, nights of unusually deep sleep, or days where you barely need sleep at all. These changes are not problems. They are the body synchronizing with the new perceptual frequency. The body does not lag behind. It adjusts to become the vehicle for your expanding version. Your awareness also restructures itself. You process information faster. You see the essence of things without needing long analysis. You sense the intention behind someone's words without them saying it. You see the outcome before the action begins. This is not prediction. This is the ability to read the field's patterns when the mind is no longer distorted by the old identity. You no longer look at life with your eyes. You look with your frequency. This stage also brings an important truth. The new frequency demands absolute honesty with yourself. No more grey zones. No more compromise. No more pretending to be fine. You stand in your truth, and anything that contradicts that truth creates immediate internal reaction. This is liberation, but it is also responsibility. Because once you know what is right, you can no longer choose what is wrong without paying the price of inner disturbance. The final and most important consequence of the new frequency is the shift in how you show up. You speak less, but people feel your energy. You do not try to influence, yet your presence naturally creates impact. You do not persuade, yet others feel illuminated when near you. This is not power, this is stable frequency, a deep stillness that makes others see the deeper part of themselves just by standing next to you. The consequence of the new frequency is not loss or gain. It is the natural reorganization that allows you to live aligned with the structure that has opened. From here on, nothing in your life will operate the way it used to, and that is not a challenge. It is proof that you have stepped onto a frequency band not everyone has the courage to reach. You are not leaving your old life. You are only leaving the version that once believed it had no choice. The self beyond all selves emerges when you reach the final boundary of everything you can use to define yourself. After all the layers fall away, all the structures dissolve, and all the old roles lose their function, you do not step into the void you once feared. You step into a new form of awareness where the self is no longer a garment you wear, but a tool you can use when needed and set down when it no longer fits. At this level, you do not search for a new shape to replace the old one. You do not need to create a better version to replace the previous version. You do not try to build a more refined, more meaningful, more powerful ego. You begin to understand that the ego is not something to perfect, it is something to see through. This awareness does not arrive through logic. It arrives through experience, when you realize that everything you once used to define yourself can no longer stand firm under the expansion of your consciousness. Beliefs that once supported you now feel too tight. Memories that once hurt you now pass like data. Stories that once shaped your identity are now just traces of an old phase. You do not deny them. You do not erase them. You see them as chapters that closed naturally when you grew beyond them. When the old self no longer functions, a stillness arises at a depth you have never touched before. A stillness not because thoughts disappear, but because you are no longer pulled into their movement. The mind still speaks. Emotions still appear. The body still responds. But you stand in a place where all of these move through you without controlling you. You realize you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your memories. You are the space in which all of them appear and dissolve. When this becomes clear, no part of you can blind you anymore. You also begin to see the truth that identity is not the enemy. It is simply a temporary mechanism that allows you to exist and interact with reality. Identity becomes dangerous only when you mistake it for your true essence. When you see identity exactly as it is, it becomes a tool instead of a prison. You can use it to express, to connect, to act, but you are no longer confined inside any shape. You are like someone who can stand both inside and outside identity at the same time. This freedom comes from awareness, not effort. At this level, you perceive reality in a completely different way. There is no longer the sense of fighting life or trying to make things happen. You do not chase anything and you do not flee from anything. You stand in a deep state of observation where everything arranges itself according to its natural structure without needing your control. You do not become passive. On the contrary, you become active in a very light yet precise way. You act when clarity arrives. You pause when silence is needed. You are no longer driven by fear or desire. You are guided by alignment. What is special at this stage is that you no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone. You do not need to prove you are good, right, strong, conscious, or deep. You do not need others to validate your path. You do not need to reassure yourself that you are on the right track. When you no longer equate yourself with any identity, comparison becomes meaningless. No one is above or below you. No one is ahead or behind you. Each person is simply reflecting a different angle of the same awareness that you are witnessing from your own angle. When you stand in this state, you understand that identity does not need to be destroyed. Identity needs to be seen through. When you see through it, it no longer has power. When it no longer has power, you can use it without being used by it. This is the self beyond the self. Not a bigger self, not a stronger self, but a self returned to its proper role, smaller, softer, more flexible, more precise. Here, you do not disappear from life. You appear more deeply. You do not detach from people. You connect more authentically. You do not step out of the world. You step into the world with a frequency of awareness. You do not look at others with judgment. You look at them with the understanding that they too are moving through their layers of self just as you once did. This does not make you higher. It makes you lighter. When identity is no longer a burden, you carry yourself through the world with the refinement of an inner clarity. This is not an endpoint. This is simply the point where you no longer ask who you are through the lens of the mind. You no longer seek a self to hold on to. You no longer want to define yourself. You no longer need an answer. You are still enough to live inside the question, spacious enough to live without a fixed shape, bright enough to see the true essence in every moment. This is real freedom. Not found in having the perfect identity, not found in breaking every identity, but found in the ability to step outside all definitions and live through the pure presence of who you are.